Look at the Jeep, Ram, Dodge inventory.
For Stellantis, which means 400 layoffs.
Stellantis endured a bumpy ride in the third quarter as revenue fell 27%.
There's Rams, and yet even more Rams. All the way to the end of the road, this parking lot is absolutely full. Look, even the Jeeps are parking in the ditch next to the train tracks because there's so much inventory.
Stellantis laying off 1,100 workers at its Toledo Jeep Assembly Complex due to sagging sales.
Lots are absolutely filling up with Jeeps, Rams, Chryslers of every product line, and lots are filling. And this isn't just 2025s. There's 24s, 23s, and there's even a few 22s out here.
With lower sales, with lower profits.
It was an entire shift from the Gladiator line that was shut down.
So I'm at a Stellantis dealership with Rams, Jeeps, Chryslers, and Dodge products, and now unfortunately the latest news is out. They can't sell a vehicle. We're seeing all kinds of inventory piling up, not just existing 2025s because we know they're coming fresh off the truck, but unfortunately there's 23s and 24s on the lot, and even 2024 model years. Like this little Ram Classic right here with a 5.7 Hemi has been sitting here for quite some time, and clearly nobody is looking at buying this truck as well. Oh, look over there, we have something unique popping through the woodwork here. What do we have over here? Well, this is another truck that you would think somebody would buy because of its simplicity, but unfortunately nobody's buying this either because this one here, I've featured this, I've showed you this truck many times over, and it's been here for quite some time. We have a very basic looking Classic, steel rims on there, long blocks, very basic looking, no rear slider, and actually even inside, look inside there, you have that very basic small screen, like a 4-inch screen. You've got plastic seats, plastic floors. There's even crank windows in this vehicle. Clearly a very simple unit, a great little work truck or for fleet, but even this one's not selling very well. Obviously this one's still sitting on the lot. Plastic here, plastic everywhere. It's a very basic vehicle, and nobody's buying these. Very few of these trucks are selling, and neither are Jeeps, and Jeep's been feeling the real burn lately. But the real struggles are, have you heard the last 6 months, the latest news is stock prices have taken a literal nosedive. 42% off a cliff. It's dropped in 6 short months. As a matter of fact, even sales have dropped for Jeep and Stellantis as much as 50% from the same time last year, showing that the inventory is just climbing. The manufacturer's trying to push product out to the dealers, but the dealers don't want their allocations. But Stellantis and Rams have been piling up inventory. They're not as popular. We've seen Ford sales on some of their trucks, as well as GM has had some record sales, but yet Ram has not been able to sell enough vehicles. Although there has been an uptick in sales, the fact remains is sports, bighorns, and just about everything under the sun is still available because there's no shortages. As a matter of fact, it's straight up extra inventory that's been sitting around here for a long time. And the worst part is we're talking now floor plan costs as 2025 rolls in, and we see these big inventory lineups. That just means these dealers are stuck paying these monthly charges that they can't afford to pay anymore. Dodge sales haven't been doing particularly well, especially with this little Dodge Hornet, and Jeeps have been one of the worst selling vehicles. They've been heavily incentivized. High price tags. We've seen prices rise on Jeeps up to 50 to 60% in the last 5 years, means that a lot of people have finally woken up and realized, wait a minute, these vehicles are way too much money, and a lot of people just can't either afford it or don't want to pay that kind of money for a modern day Jeep. It's simply not worth it in a lot of people's opinions. And vehicles like the Compass here is supposed to be their small subcompact SUV, has all of the bling you want. I mean, there's no sunroof here. It's a very basic looking vehicle. You get some nice chrome detail, but I see these vehicles in the high trim levels as much as $55,000 Canadian. It's no wonder they're not selling. Jeep Grand Cherokees have also been moderate sellers just because you can spec one up to almost $100,000 to get into one of these vehicles. And again, another example, a gleaming example of how they've priced themselves out of this market, a market that they've deemed themselves as a luxury car. There's no amount of money or no amount of convincing that you can tell me that a Jeep like this is actually a luxury vehicle. But that's what Jeep is trying to promote themselves, rebrand these vehicles like this Wagoneer and the Grand Wagoneers as luxury vehicles, but they're clearly not. And that's another big reason why they're heavily incentivized. Here recently, Jeep has offered up some major incentives and clawbacks on some of the pricing of a lot of these vehicles because they were not selling. The Grand Wagoneers in certain trim levels, you can even get as much as $7,000 or $8,000 off. but that's still not enough for most customers. And now as you see all of this inventory continually rise, we're seeing a lot of these Rams, although they have been heavily incentivized and some of them have been selling. Fact remains is there's still way too many older models, 23s and 24s laying around, and now the 25s are just filling up the lots as they're rolling in off the trucks. So factories had to start scaling back production. In other words, they stopped the manufacturing process for some of their key vehicles, the Wranglers, the Jeep Grand Cherokees, just because the dealers weren't pushing them out to the market quick enough. They had to actually stop production and stop sending vehicles to each individual dealer because they could not sell them. To make matters worse, on top of all the poor sales, now you have UAW hacking down, and merely a couple short years ago you had UAW renegotiate a contract now that Stellantis can't live up to. They've been closing plants, the plants that were producing one of the most affordable half-ton pickup trucks called the Classic now is actually being closed down, which they promised to fully tool that factory up, and now UAW is on a tear and they want to take Stellantis to a strike.
Floyd Street in Detroit will soon be about 400 UAW workers lighter with a new round of layoffs set forth. The European...
So do some of these fresh vehicles coming to the lineup this upcoming year, is that going to be enough to change it? Is the changing of the guard, the CEO, swapping hands and throwing out the baton in early 2026 going to be enough? Time will tell. Things are dire straits right now. Products are not selling and Stellantis is in serious heat. Not only is it a North American issue with a lot of the products, and a lot of the customers in North America feel like they've been isolated and neglected from Stellantis and the intention of what they're seeing in Europe, but the bottom line is the way it stands today with this downward trajectory in stock prices, sales declines, it almost looks like it's trending directly to the word B, bankrupt. And to keep adding fuel to the fire, what's happening with all of these layoffs, I can't even keep track anymore. Now, recent word has it, by the end of 2024, they're looking at about 4,000 layoffs. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of people looking for new jobs. And a big part of this whole Stellantis conundrum is due to a pricing issue. A lot of people enjoyed a lot of these great products. A lot of people like the HD trucks for towing duty. A lot of people like Jeeps because they're fun. You can take the roof off, go 4x4. And some of them you could even get with a manual transmission, although I believe they're taking those off the market very soon. A lot of people looked to Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler as sort of the fun brand for many years. They had fun products that were unique, powerful trucks, powerful vehicles, off-road vehicles. Think back, the Dodge Viper, they come from a place where they had some really popular vehicles. How did they get so wrong so quickly? And one of the big problems a lot of customers are finding, a lot of the product line is just getting stale. The Rams have been very much unchanged, and even with a minor facelift, they're more or less a very similar truck as they've always been. Now, unfortunately, Stellantis is ringing the alarm bells, and it's a true emergency. They can't sell their vehicles, and that's a clear example of what you're finding today. So the more recalls we get week over week over week just continually reinforces the lack of confidence that the consumer has for the quality in a lot of these Stellantis products. And more issues that have been plaguing Stellantis. Have you heard the latest recalls? 200,000 2018 and 2019 Dodge Durango and Jeep Grand Cherokees are being recalled for some faulty ABS issues. There's been recalls and quality control issues with some of the diesel engines, as well as some of the traction control problems related to Dodge Rams or Ram pickup trucks as well. And then there's been alleged fire risks related to the Wrangler 4xe and the Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xe related to the hybrid system. And now clearly quality control is a big challenge for Ram. And quality control is a big challenge for Stellantis with Ram Jeep products galore.